Good morning. Welcome to Ramblings with Joe. I have a little bit of a congestion problem this morning, so please forgive the occasional sniffle that you might hear that I might miss cutting out. But I woke up this morning and I thought about the past week and the couple days I have ahead of me for my work. And last week ended with a really up situation or happy scenario. There was this person. I talked about her on my last podcast, and she was exuberant, I think is the word. And that kind of set my weekend for me. Really enjoyed that. Also, my wife was in a very good mood. And yesterday when I got home, we had she celebrates some kind of holiday. I'm not familiar with it, and it was similar to a Seder. There's 5 fruits and vegetables, or maybe more, I can't remember. Let's see, let me think. On the table, we had cookies that represented wheat, and then there were grapes. I guess that's from the vine or from a tree. From there I know there was pomegranate and figs. Let's see, pomegranate, figs, dates, and I'm missing one. I know I am. And beer. And the beer has barley in it. That was representing the barley. She explained it, and I listened. I was kind of distracted yesterday evening because of I wasn't really sure why I was distracted. And I think what it came down to was there's this fellow worker that has a bad attitude, and I'd been trying to kind of break that ice, that cold shoulder, for a while, and I thought I had made inroads in that direction, but I have not. So my attitude last night was probably not exemplary. I tried. I gave it a good effort. I enjoyed the meal. I enjoyed the different flavors of the holiday she was celebrating, but I never did really shake the problem at the time, the unknown problem that I had. And this morning when I woke up and I'm reading the news, I realized, it's that guy, and I got a little bit mad. And then I said, wait a minute, that's not who I want to be. I don't want to be that mad guy. I don't want to have that attitude. I need an attitude adjustment. Does he need an attitude adjustment? That's not my business. That's his business. My business is me and my attitude. So I decided to change my attitude this morning. And part of that is going to be what I wanted to talk about on this morning's podcast, which is attitudes. Of course, that's what I woke up to. That's what I'm going to talk about. I wrote down some notes. I tried to get a grasp on where my mental status was, where I was trying to kind of focus my energies and always become a better person. That's always should be the goal. And that is the goal, is to become a better person. Now, in doing so, there are some side effects. When we become a better person, we affect our environment. If you have a bad attitude, as was evidenced at last night's dinner by myself, you can affect the people around you. So, by the way, my favorite item at that dinner that the wife lovingly prepared was the dates. Surprisingly, I thought it was going to be the figs, but the dates were not as sweet as I thought they were going to be. They were, I think they were dusted in coconut, but they were extremely delicious. Really did enjoy the dates. And I did change my attitude midway through the meal because I realized that I was affecting my wife. And I enjoyed what she prepared, and I enjoyed watching her celebrate her holiday, and I participated as much as I was able to with the prayers that she had. We don't follow the same path. We have to kind of celebrate in our own individual ways. Most of what she does, as a matter of fact, I think 99% of what she does is not counter to my own faith. when you back to attitudes, when you have a bad attitude, it seems like everybody around you has a bad attitude as well. That's because they do. That's because when they see that you have a bad attitude, that's what they're going to give to you. They're going to reciprocate your attitude. They're going to reflect your attitude. Also, when you have a bad attitude, what you tend to see is the worst in everybody. You know, oh, look at that guy. He just picked his butt. You know, everybody picks their, scratches their butt or adjusts their underwear. Everybody does it. But when you have a bad attitude, you look for negative things to pick out. Yesterday, I kind of fell for that a little bit. I had the bad attitude for a minute after I interacted with this fellow. The world around us is more of a reflection of who we are than we oftentimes give it credit. It is simply put, you are served what you serve. So if you are serving up a bad attitude, chances are you're going to get a bad attitude back. There is a bigger picture in your world. And when your attitude is so focused on how horrible everything is, your worldview shrinks and you become pinpoint focused on anything negative you can find. It's not a healthy state to be in because there's a lot of people in the world with a lot of love. I got a lot of coffee. Look around you. Look around at the people who you interact with on the daily. Try and see if they have good or bad attitudes. And if they have good attitudes, think about your current state of mind. Think about how well you feel. Think about how they are affecting you. Because more than likely, it's because you have a good attitude and a smile on your face that the people around you have the same. We can never not be ourselves. So when you walk out of a situation, I'm thinking of one very specifically that I walked out of yesterday. It's a store, and I deal with the same couple people there every day. And before I go in that store, I make sure I put on a happy face because there's some younger people in there that seem to have had a hard time of it in, last year, basically. Their management kind of got topsy-turvy there for a while. So I put on a smile, and I swear, by the time I left out of that place, the one young lady in there was laughing and smiling as just the opposite of when I walked in. And I always try and make people's days better when I can. Can't always. It's not my calling in life to give counsel to people who aren't happy with themselves. But on a limited basis, when I interact with someone, if I know they're having a hard time of it, the bare minimum I can do is not make it any worse. So the young lady was very happy when I left, and the young man was very happy. He's not nearly as, what is the word? Malcontent, not happy with the job, but he's always a little bit up. But yesterday when I walked out of there, she was a little bit up. That was selfish of me. I can live with that because I like it when people are happy. And when I walked out of there, she was happy and I had a much easier interaction than if she'd have been a sourpuss, which she wasn't. Look around you. Get the big picture. Now, if you look around you and you see everybody seems to be in ill humor, everybody seems to be angry about something, it may be. It may not be, but it may be. And this is something that we each have to figure out for ourselves, but it may be indicative of who we are, of what we're representing in our lives. Are you being a grumpy guy? A grumpy gal? Are you making all of these people's lives less good? When they see you coming, look ahead. In trucking, we call it aim high and steering. Look up. Don't walk with your head down as you're going into a situation. How are those people interacting? And now when you get in there and you start interacting with them, does the mood change? If it does, chances are it's on you. Now, it's not a concrete rule. It is something that is just kind of a rule of thumb. You can, if every time you go into a situation, everybody seems to be angry about something. Are you angry about something? Are you in a bad mood? Are you constantly down? It's a bigger picture, man. We all influence the people around us. We all make the people around us feel a certain way. I still believe our surroundings are oftentimes a reflection of who we are. Who are you? That's the question that we end up having to ask ourselves. Who are you? So once you've done that, once you have looked around and perhaps you've realized, everybody is angry whenever I'm around, or everybody seems to be depressed when I'm around, or everybody seems to be really, negative when I'm around. But I have watched from a distance, and when I watch from a distance, they're not like that. Now you got to get a little bit introspective on your own ass. Oops, swore there, sorry. Now you got to get a little introspective on your own self. There's lots of techniques. I'm not a psychologist. I'm an old trucker. I've been around the block, both literally and, allegorically. Is that the word? There are some things that I have learned. My wife hates this saying. She says it never works for her. She's on the verge of an extreme introvert. I think that she'd agree with that. If not, I'll get yelled at later. I don't think she'll yell at me. But and I've been thinking about this and why it works and why it doesn't work for some people. Being an introvert, when you're depressed and you're down and you're only dealing with one person when you're in that situation. You're only dealing with one individual, in her case, me. When you're feeling low, I can only do so much. I'm one person. I'm a very up person. I'm a very happy person. I'm a content person. But I can only be content on a individual level. So where I'm heading with this will make sense in a moment. But if you're around people all the time and you're interacting with a lot of people and the world is a reflection of yourself, you are feeling down and you're feeling out and you're feeling depressed. They tell you in some psychological circles, fake it until you make it. And I think my own perspective is this has more to do with the people around you than it does your own emotional well-being, sort of. So the people around you are a reflection of who you are and how you're behaving. So if you're around people and you're feeling down and you're feeling out and you're feeling depressed, and the people around you are going to start kind of reflecting that back to you, and they'll say things to you when they realize it. If you're around a loving group of people, they will say to you, "Are you okay? You seem a little down." Their tone changes. They get a little bit more somber. They get a little bit more serious. They become a little bit more, depressed. They come down to your level. So they're reflecting back onto you, even though they're not acting, even though they are giving you a caring statement, a caring inquiry. How are you? Are you okay? Their tone is different. And when your response is, "Yeah, I'm just not feeling really great today. I'm just not doing really well at the moment." They will give you counsel. "Oh, I'm so sorry. What's going on? Just feeling down, are you? I feel bad that you're not feeling good." As you can hear, everything they're giving to you is caring and loving sentiments, but that tone, that emphasis coming out in the tone of their words is reflecting your attitude. So when you fake it until you make it, I think what happens is, especially when you are around a lot of people, they give it back to you. It's reflected back onto you. And that reinforces the idea that you have a good attitude And that reinforces the idea that being content and happy is a better mental well-being than being depressed and sad. I'm not a psychologist. I'm a truck driver. And that's my opinion. The blocks I've been around have kind of proven this out to me. So the fake it until you make it, it is about you, but it's not about you. It's about projecting upon the people around you the feelings that you want to come back to you. So the fake it till you make it, I don't know that it would work if you're by yourself. I think it does work when you're surrounded by caring people. There's another technique that I have come to use as far as attitudes go in my attitude. And that is when someone truly has a bad attitude, that whole thing where I said it's a reflection, I recognize in myself that I want to reflect back on that person their attitude. And that change, although their change has to come from within themselves, I can change myself. So I'm not going to reflect back upon them the negative attitude. That doesn't mean I'm going to force, the reason I started this morning podcast was so that I didn't force my happy, yay, I'm awake attitude on the wife. That's not appropriate. I'm not going to force my attitude on someone. However, if I'm interacting with someone and they seem content, even though they're down, to interact with me with my positive attitude, I will continue to do so. Sometimes people are depressed and sad and they just want space. And that's what I give them. I give them space. It's very difficult for me to reflect a negative attitude. I have worked my whole life to try and be content with myself and content with other people. So when someone is down, I try and bypass that mechanism that as, us characters in that person's world reflect back on them. Something just occurred to me. The characters in this world that reflect back on them, I try to bypass that mechanism and give them a good attitude, give them positiveness. And that seems to work. It seems to be something that is doable on my part, at least. This next part's a little difficult for me. It has a little bit to do with that last part, talking to people with the attitude that you want to come back to you. Oftentimes will bring someone up out of that darkness that they may be, sitting in. But there's something beyond that. People who never seem to have a great attitude. And this may be situational. I don't know. I don't go with them when I'm not around them, so I don't know. Perhaps they just don't like people who are content in their lives. Perhaps they don't like their jobs. Perhaps they don't like their boss. Perhaps they don't like the neighbors. You can't tell. I try to talk to the attitude I wish they had. So this individual that I started the podcast with that has not a great attitude, has a bad attitude. Today, now that I recognized what happened yesterday, today I will endeavor to talk to the attitude I wish he has. To talk to the attitude I wish he could reflect back onto me. And I'm going to make an effort to do that. It may not change him, but it will probably change me. So again, I can be selfish, and perhaps the ramifications of my selfishness will be reflected back on me by him having a good attitude. Or it may not. And I have to learn to accept that because I can't, it upsets me because I recognize when people are not happy and I want to make them happy. That's one of the things in myself that I had to recognize a long time ago. I am a people pleaser and I want to make people happy. I've had to overcome that in certain aspects of my life, but there you go. So even with people that have a bad attitude, I'm going to endeavor to speak to the attitude I wish they had. Also, on that same front, I'm going to try and give more of myself to the people who have the attitudes that I desire. this is very personal to me, and it should be personal to everybody. But if someone has an extremely bad attitude and it has been shown that this is not going to change, that this is going to be the attitude that they have forever, at least apparently, that person doesn't deserve as much of yourself as the people who have the good attitudes, that have the more caring natures. So, although this one individual that I started the podcast with has a bad attitude, I'm not going to go out of my way to try and give more of myself to him. I'm not going to avoid him. And when I do interact with him, I will give him as much positiveness as I can. This all kind of sounds, 1960 hippie, but it's not. It's just how we interact with each other and how others interact with us. And it's my kind of theory on life and my philosophy of how to make the world a better place. So there we have my philosophy on attitudes. Now, something that occurred to me. I'm a gamer. Well, I used to be. I don't play a lot of games now. The games that we play and the games that were most successful were reliant. So I like the games like Fallout, and I like the adventure games like Dungeons and Dragons style games, Diablo. But the ones that had character interactions that were kind of fluid, the characters in those games would change their attitude toward you by the choices you made. It was just occurred to me during this last little spiel that I'm giving about the characters in video games and how they respond. And perhaps that's one of the reasons that I enjoyed video games for so many years, was because they actually did kind of reflect back at me the attitude I was bringing in. And on that same front, we could, I do recall starting some characters and telling trying to play the character with a different disposition, just as a kind of a escape from reality, and how in that character's world, within that video game, they were constantly attacked and whatnot. And it was just a thought I had while I was talking about attitudes. This was something that I thought about last night and this morning when I woke up after I read the news. And so I put the news aside and I decided to do a podcast on attitudes. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm really enjoying my podcast lately. Last night I had some interactions online. Mostly positive. I had one that was kind of negative. He started his statement with "shut the F up." And I thought that's a great way. That was an incredibly, and kind of fit right into this whole attitude thing, but that was a great way to start an interaction with a complete stranger who's just doing a podcast for kicks. That was hilarious. I actually sat there and chuckled. Of course, I had to respond because at that point I was laughing. I gave him back what he gave me with a little bit more understanding, I think. I'm going to go to work today. I'm going to try and put on a good attitude. And I'm not faking it this morning, so I don't have to fake it until I make it. But if I did, I would put on my good attitude. But I am going to go to work and have a good day. I hope you go to work and you have a good day as well. And I hope you find peace, love, and dream. Until next time, Lahi Throat.